Paul and I want to thank everybody for coming, and this is where it's at today. These are the people we used to watch when we were younger. These are the, I'll tell you what, sports heroes. I had Ted Williams, Bobby Orr, Ricky Mantle, all my sports heroes. Do you know what? They never came to Lancaster. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you for coming. Thank everybody that brought those vintage sleds out there. And after the ceremony, Mark Belanger had restored my 77 TX. He turned it into a 75 PDC clone. That's out there, and we're going to unveil that after the ceremony. So that'll be fun for me, because I haven't seen it yet. And I thank the board members, Greg Allen, Shane Beatty, Bob Clark, Greg Westcott. I don't know if any of you guys are here, but I know Bob Clark is. And Greg. Greg is our cameraman. He's over there. Thank Mike LaPierre for coming. Mike thinks he might have a vintage show coming up in August 10th, up on Derby Line, Vermont. So hopefully we can be there too for that. And I want to thank my wife Linda. And certainly she's been a big force in helping me on this deal. And I want to thank everybody for coming here. Cal Reynolds and his wife Mary Ann, Bruce Beauregard, last year's inductees, Louis Lund and his wife, and Ed Stabb. Thank you very much for coming back. And I think with that, we got to thank Rick Simula. Well, I don't know if you people have been on this Facebook thing, was new to me. Never thought I'd ever do Facebook. My wife does. And Rick Simula tried to get me on Facebook for a year or two now. And he said, you got to get on there, that Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame. He said, you got to get on there. And I said, you and Paul started this thing, and he said it would be nice to have you on. Well, guess what? I can't get off it now.
There's a name for that.
I'm sitting there on the computer, what, 7-8 hours a day? I'm telling you, it's so much fun. Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame Facebook page, Rick Simula started it. He's over, hey Rick, come over here. You and your wife Karen. Did a great job, man. I'm telling you.
Thank you.
This is Rick. He used to race snowmobiles for 11 years ago, and now he's just a regular guy. So, Leon Guile and his wife are here. There's Leon. He told me not to say anything, but I'm going to. Leon's done a great job. He's helped us out on the cyberspace there, on the emails back and forth, and a lot of suggestions and everything comes his way, and we really appreciate that. And Mark Belanger, I don't know where Mark is, but
I know he is.
there he is. There he is. Mark's here, and he brought the sled outside. It's the Roberts Motors clone of a Skidoo that Roberts Motors, they used to race them back years ago, 1968 Skidoo.
Correct.
And that's setting outside, and it's exactly from this wall here to the back of that sled, 67 feet 6 inches. So if you want to open that door and back up to this wall and look out through there, that's how far Bob Fortin jumped on a sled with 3 inches of suspension travel. I mean, kids today jump that far every lap in the snow cross thing. But when you look at that sled and then see how far that thing jumped back in 1967, dude. We're going to cover that. So, Paul Crane. Does anybody know that 60 years ago, Paul Crane was the first guy to ride a skidoo snowmobile in the town of Lancaster, and not only that, America. He's the first guy to ride. Hey, Paul. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs of the story that I wrote here. I'm going to need my glasses. I write a little article in this Northwoods Weekly, and a couple of weeks ago I wrote about this ceremony, this induction ceremony, and this is what I started with. It says, at 7 a.m. on Saturday, May 20th, 2017, 78-year-old Paul Crane drove down to a snowmobile museum, unlocked the front door, grabbed his open flag, walked back up the long driveway to Main Street, and hung it under his sign. But this was just no ordinary day for Crane Snowmobile Museum, for on this day, Paul would begin a new chapter in his lifelong service to the snowmobile and snowmobile racing by inducting into the newly formed Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame our top first-generation snowmobile racers from the golden era, the ones who started it all. Over 50 years ago, the ones who began racing on 7-horsepower machines almost 60 years ago and ended 20 years later driving world-class 100-plus horsepower ice racers at speeds of over 100 miles an hour. Yes, folks, these once young men and women believed that no one remembered them or remembered that exciting time in our history. They believed too much time had passed since the sport was brand new and the excitement was at a fever pitch. All that was left from this period were faded black and white photos, faded film, and faded memories. 50 people showed up to watch our first induction of 4 racing pioneers. It took all of 30 minutes to cover over 50 years of a sport that was once so important. Even our governors came to the Grand Prix on Sunday. A State of New Hampshire declaration was issued each year designating Grand Prix week. In 2018, our crowd size doubled as we inducted 5 more racing pioneers. But sadly, we also had a moment of silence for one of our original 4, Mr. Conrad Rollins, who had passed away 6 months earlier. Oh, how I wished we had thought of doing this years ago. It's another race now. It gets time. And the guy that owns the place, Mr. Paul Crane, is as much of a legend as anybody. It says so right there. He's also a member of the Hall of Fame out in Eagle River, up there on the wall. So I congratulate Paul Crane for 60 years of service to the snowmobile. Well, we're going to begin. Mr. Bob Fortin. Robert Fortin, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2019. Bob's first race was at the 1964 International Grand Prix. He won Class C at the 1966 Grand Prix and was the second person to have his name on the then new and now famous Kilkenny Cup. Fortin won the prestigious 1966 Maine State Championship by taking 3 firsts and 2 seconds in front of a standing room only hometown crowd. Bob set a world jump record of 67 feet 6 inches at the 1967 Grand Prix. And like I say, you open that door out there, you can see how far that is on that little sled. Bob won the 1969 New Hampshire State Championship in Wolfboro. He became team captain of the famed Big T racing team sponsored by Skidoo Distributor Timberland Machines Incorporated. In 1970, Bob won the Balsams Cup, the Kilkenny Cup, Vermont's Exodus Grand Prix. He won in Mod 1 at Lewiston, Mod 2 at Bangor, and was nearly unbeatable in Mod 1 and Mod 2 classes during both 1970 and 71 seasons. Well on his way to another very successful year of racing, it took a mid-season accident while testing one of his new sleds to sideline Fortin for the remainder of the 1972 season. And I'm going to tell you something. That was the year they had those little baby triples. Bob Fortin would have been #1 had he been able to race that year, I guarantee it. Wearing gold bib numbers 2 and 3 during his 10 years of racing, Bob Fortin was a stickler for perfection and is widely regarded as the greatest New England skidoo racer of his generation. Mr. Bob Fortin. Now there's another gentleman I want to introduce that is going to say a few words about Bob. And last year's inductee. And his name, his plaque hadn't been put on the wall more than 5 minutes when I felt his arm come around my shoulder. And he whispered, he says, Bob Fortin needs to be up on that wall. And I explained to him how, we're trying to do the one that's still with us first, and eventually we'll do the ones that have passed away. And he shakes his head and he says, Bob needs to be up there more sooner than later. I know why this guy is so big. He has to carry around a big heart. Mr. Calvin Reynolds.
Okay, does everybody hear me? You hear me okay, buddy?
Always good.
Okay, pull yourself together. I'll tell you, the first time I ever raced, a real race on a snowmobile was at Lancaster. And we pulled in there with just one, I must have been a 64, because there was part of the participants were still at 4-cycle engine, Kohler engines, and wooden skis. But anyway, it didn't take me, I was racing at Beechwood at the time, racing cars. Can everybody hear me?
No.
Can't hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, at the time I was racing cars at Vintage Speedway, and I hadn't started racing motorcycles yet, but I was racing cars. And so I had a little, I'm pretty confident when I come up there from Flatland on that little six horsepower with the Skidoo. And we no more pulled in and unloaded it, and I looked around and I could see who was going to be the competition. Because there was one guy riding around on his knees, and he had the confidence, and he had it all covered. The guy was really, really sharp and on the stick and on the ball. And he was everywhere. I think he was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And he was over here, and he was over there, and he was over here. And I said, man, And here I am from the flatlands. So anyway, I think we had to weigh 200 pounds. The machine, the rider had to weigh 200 pounds. Like I weighed 190 with snowmobile suit and all that.
They had to wait.
So they had to weigh my glove box, sandbags in the glove box. When everybody's running around making a lot of noise, and I said, man, they make a lot of noise, it must be going faster. So I took the muffler off my machine, and I haven't heard anything since. Probably slowed me down about 3 miles an hour taking the muffler. And anyway, you take the noise coming out of that cab, coming back on you, and I think the cross country was like 6 miles. By the time I got back for 3 days, I couldn't. So I got back to the shop down in Buxton, and we were skidooed over, and I took off, I got the machine out next morning, and I took off across the field, and well, I'm a big racer now, snowmobile racer, and I hit a berm out there like that, and the glove box come open, and it filled my face. That's how I got it. Because Bobby won it all. But the guy, I think Dave Pickard hung the name on him, El Capitan. El Capitan.
Yeah.
Is that right, Bobby? Yep. Dave Pickard. And, right, Bruce? And we got whatever we wanted, we had to get it from Bruce. I mean, from Bobby. And Bobby was very generous with it, the information, very generous, and he passed it down to us guys. And you always talked about my machines, how they were good and clean and everything, because I had to emulate Bob. The machines were spotless, 10 line machines were spotless. Well, 1 year, I got promised the world from Nero Distributors to ride out a cab. They were going to give me machines, and they wooed me in with big time. So I jumped ship and put out a cab. And, before I got done, I was on my hands and knees in front of Bill Sarwin's desk. Taking up machines. Honest, Bill says, no, till I got right on my hands and knees and said, please, Bill, give me this. And anyway, I think the next race, Bobby got hurt. I'm back tonight. And his 640 was ready to go, nobody to ride it. So they told me to ride it. And in Bangor. And you remember the race up there? And Tom Peters remembers the race because he's the guy that I kept looking down and saying, where'd that stream to come from? Going away. And I rode the bags all the way around, and I won the race anyway on Bobby's machine. And that was, I mean, he was the leader. He set the pace of everybody. He set the
high marks.
The high marks, and we all wanted to follow it.
Yeah.
And that's why my machines are always spotless. That's why we always rode with decent clothes. And we try to look better than Timberland, which is hard to do. They got this one, that was sharp. But I will say one thing, Timberland did give me, 2 years in a row, give me 4 machines to race, pick my own riders. And I know they did that with Bobby's blessing. Because if Bobby hadn't said okay, I would have never got it. So anyway, the guy who deserves to be up there, and he should have been in the first year.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
By the way, David Fortin has got some Kilkenny cups of his own.
Thanks to Michelangelo.
The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. Ronald Hall. Ronald Hall, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2019. He began racing in 1970 on local upstate New York tracks. Ron was offered a factory production Thunderjet 440 in 1972. Had highest points for any Thunderjet in Mod 3 in USSA East. Began racing Rupp and later Arctic Cat for the legendary Team of Bold in 1973. Ron is still the only driver to win the Adirondack Cup twice. He won a Kilkenny Cup in Mod 1 at the 1975 Lancaster Grand Prix and took first place in Mod 3 at the 1975 World Series. He still holds the record for most USSA points ever in one season. Ron Hall still holds the record 15 straight feature wins in Mod 1. He wore gold bibs number 1, 3, 4, 8, and 22 during his racing career. In 1977, while racing in 5 different classes, Ron took 22 first place, 12 second, 7 third place, and 7 fourth place finishes. Ironically, in only his first year of racing in stock, Ron broke a spindle crashing into the wall at Eganville, Ontario, Canada on February 5th, 1977, ending his amazing career, and left the sport with over 150 first, second, and third place trophies in just 7 years of racing. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ron Hall.
If I could have just a few minutes of your time, I'm trying to think, this week what I might say to everyone here, but I'd like to honor some names, say some names that through my career that helped me out, just voice their name in this Hall of Fame here, if you bear with me. My early years, and I started out, and I never sat on a snowmobile until I was 27 years old. I started with my boss, the Courier Corporation, was a part of a dealership in Syracuse, and Phil Richardson and his brother-in-law had a dealership in Syracuse there. They'd sold, the heyday of snowmobiles, they sold 1,500 new units a year back then, And you go to, when you went to Boonville and stuff, you would have 5,000 or better spectators. You'd have 880 entries. It was, everybody here knows it was big back then, And then I got a ride with this Snowjet there the next year, and Ronnie Cornell and Vern Conway, Aero Marina, and Night of Lake. And then from that, the next year, Bill Abel called me up and wanted me to run a RUP. He had, a good deal with RUP. It took us a while to get it figured out, but it turned out to be a good year with the RUP. And then that started he was sponsoring it through A&P Auto Parts. That's what he owned. And from there, we went on. That was the beginning of Able Racing, Team Able Racing. And from there, Herb Yancey, Chip Elwood, and I were racing. And all these names that I'm going to mention now are names that helped all three of us. And it's Charlie Hemans and Al Conklin, and my wife's uncle was our best man. He died at 42 with cancer. He was down helping me about every night down to my house. And then of course Bill, he worked night and day. He's still racing. He's 81, 82 years old. He's still racing in Star, super modified cars. He's got 2 grandsons that are still racing. And he's still doing it today. I don't know how he does it. And another person I want to mention is my head cheerleader, my daughter. And then I got this gal that's been following me around here for 57 years. And anybody that's been in the racing, it's hard on the marriage life. But she went with us just about every week.
Ron's wife.
And our two children too. We did it a family deal.
And our son.
Yeah, and my son, he's got a thumb that's bent right backwards from building tracks. Really, you're short. I never seen anybody who can bend a thumb backwards, but he does it. Well, I sure appreciate this, and I appreciate you guys having this here. It's just a marvelous idea, you know. It brings back a lot of nice memories to everybody, you know. Thank you so much.
Terry, would you go up and take a picture, please? So we can take a picture of you too?
Now?
Thank you.
Ron brought up a good point about the ladies, the wives. These guys will tell you they couldn't have done it without them. They're the real heroes in this whole thing.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Mr. Claude Hebert. Claude Hebert, racer promoter, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2019. Claude's exceptional racing talent in the early 1960s was noticed by the local Colbert motorski dealer, who then hired him as their driver. He was soon invited to race for the Eastern Motorski distributor, Rockwell Incorporated. It was here that Claude not only became New England sales manager for Rockwell, but worked closely with the motorski factory on engine development to increase horsepower, and was involved in the many rule requirements for racing. His role in production testing and new model development, along with a full racing schedule each season, contributed greatly to motorski's success. When Rockwell Distributors ceased as a distributor for snowmobiles, Claude accepted the job as New England regional manager for Snowjet, now owned by Kawasaki Motors. Claude was soon promoted to as national international sales manager and involved in the Grand Rapids, Michigan, where he was involved in production testing, product development, and was involved in the development and promotion of the TOC Tournament of Champions. In 1969, on an icy Sunday morning at the Lancaster Grand Prix racetrack, snowmobile racer Claude Hebert, driving a 634 motorski, got into a first turn skirmish with a Nordic cat rider and delivered to the snowmobile racing world the first real glimpse of the element of danger to this new sport. Will always be remembered as the guy who cut off a telephone pole.
You know, I never saw a pole because I thought I could use the berm and get around. My three-cornered files didn't hold. So I was going up to the berm, and then I see all these kids and people behind the fence. I thought, oh my God, that's where I'm going. Next thing I knew, when I came to, I was paralyzed, I was blind, and I thought, what in the hell happened? Somebody grabbed my foot, and I could feel it. I thought, shit, I'm not paralyzed. So I was right between the snowbank and the fence. They pulled me out of there. I was still blind. I turned my helmet around. I still didn't know what happened. The pole was on the track, and my motorski's upside down on the fence. What? Well, I never saw the pole. That was the most amazing thing ever. And then they got my sled out, and I realized Tell him my brake cable was broke. I couldn't slow down anyway. So that was my day. It's a pleasure to be here and to accept this on behalf of the telephone pole in Lancaster.
They took him to the hospital, checked him out, he came back that same day and started racing again.
I didn't go very fast, but my brake cable was still broken.
Claude is still promoting though. Claude has been instrumental in helping us find these different racers and everything the last couple of years on the internet. He's all the time looking for people, and he's been very helpful. So Claude's always doing something for us.
Hey.
I want to thank Rick Simulus for the work he's done in developing the site. And that has brought together so many of the races and names from yesterday that we had all long forgotten. And all of a sudden, the stories they come out with and the memory these guys have is just unbelievable. I think Bruce Bourgeois...
Don't ask them what they had for breakfast.
Bruce Bourgeois can tell you every race he was ever in and what position he was in. You know, who remembers that stuff? So thank you and for Paul Crane and you, Ed, for all the work you've done in that. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You know, when you talk about Bruce, I was telling somebody, Bruce was probably in your 20s when you were racing, right, Bruce? That's pretty hard to forget. Now, Bruce became an electrician, and he was an electrician for most of his life. But he never had 5,000 and 6,000 people watching him twist wires together. He never had anybody come out and ask him for their autograph while he was doing electrical work. But they did when he was younger, and that's what you're going to remember. Jay, I told you. Ralph J.R. Tozier Jr., inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame 2019. J.R. began racing in 1967, retiring 13 years later in 1980. After soundly beating Skidoo distributor racing juggernaut Timberland Machines, J.R. was approached by team captain Bob Fortin, who demanded that he begin racing for them. He wore gold bibs number 2, 7, 10, and 15 during his racing career. A conservative estimate of 200 first, second, and third place trophies were garnered during his 13 years of racing. He set track speed records both at Jackman and Scarborough, Maine, which held for 10 years and 8 years respectively. Was a member of both the USSA Drivers Committee from 1974 to 1979 and was on the USSA Board of Directors from 1976 to 1978. Tozier won back-to-back Kilkenny Cups at the 1975 Lancaster Grand Prix, taking first place in both Mod Stock 3 and Super Mod 3. JR garnered enough USSA points each racing season to compete at 6 World Series events, taking a couple of third-place finishes and a couple of fifth-place finishes. During the 1976 Lancaster Grand Prix, JR not only won a Kilkenny Cup in Mod Stock 2, but grabbed second place in Super Mod 2, beat only by Gilles Villeneuve on his revolutionary IFS Scarule. If he hadn't shown up with that Scarule, he'd have cleaned house that year.
I got a few things to say. Calvin kind of rained on my parade and some of it. I want to let you all know I'm very honored and feel very privileged to be here today. And I think we all should take a look at a couple guys here and whoever else helps them, that they have, they've started something really great. You know, this Eastern Division was, as far as I know, included Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, and Pennsylvania. And if somebody come out of New Jersey, I guess so too, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I didn't know if Ohio was in there or not. But the reason these pictures are on the wall, and there's a lot more coming as the years go on, is because of these guys right here. You know, other than one guy, the rest of us have never been in the Hall of Fame of snowmobile racing. And that guy will soon be up here talking to you, I guess. But anyway, I just want to take my hat off to these guys. I want you guys to know how much, and I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody, how much we appreciate all the work that you guys have done to make this all happen for us. Well, it's my last hurrah, so I got a little story to tell. And I'm telling this story because I want to recognize someone that was very close to me on and off the track as time went on. It's kind of a funny story how we started, but I started racing, as I said, in '67, just myself and my dad, and he was a big part of it for 8 or 9 years there. He was always with me working, and he'd come up with some stuff that I would shake my head at, but it usually worked. But anyway, raced ski roll in '67, had a cap for 2 or 3 years, never raced out into going after sanction points or anything. But as time went on, we had a flare from Nelson and Small, 340, and we done quite well with it, but we didn't get enough points to go to the World Series. So that March in '72, I guess it would be, we went to Ellsworth, Maine. We'd done a few things to the chassis and some ski tricks, and let's go down and see what's going to do. But unbeknown to us, the big yellow truck was there. Bob Martin, Bob Fortin, and Calvin Reynolds was there. There's all tuning out. I don't know if you were there that weekend or not, Bruce, but there's a reason why I'm telling this story. So,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
they were getting ready to go to World Series. They were just there to test. But we were planning something that probably we would try to use next year because, you know, our season was over. But anyway, as the day went on, my stuff was working pretty good. And as everybody knows, Bob Fortin he was the best back in the 250, 340, and 650 classes at that time. And mine was a 340. Well, I didn't have anywhere near the sled he had, but we had our trucks working pretty good for us. And to make a long story short, we got to the final, and we hadn't met yet. I didn't even know Bob Fortin, and he didn't know me, of course. But in that final race, my stuff I was handling good enough so that I could buy him. And in the turn, but he'd blow me away in the straightaways. But anyway, I ended up getting the win. And of course, my father and I, we were pretty happy, but we just beat Bob Fortin. Nobody beats Bob Fortin. And when we locked out, we got it done. So anyway, we thought we'd done great things. We was loading the sled, and the tech man came over, and he says, told you, you're going to bring a sled to tear down. I said, what for? This is the last race of the year. I'm not going to the World Series. No, there's a guy here, a pretty proud guy, he says, and he wants you to tore down, but you ain't going to let nobody up here, Northern Maine, come down here and beat his ass. That's the way the tech man said it. So. Well, they tore me down, and Bob was standing there, and he didn't say a word to me. But, so they got the big truck up, and we were proving, okay, we were legal. And away went the big truck, and I was standing with my father, and now we got to put the cylinders back on, put the head back on, and throw the clutch back on it, because they checked everything. So they put a little burr in my saddle about Mr. Fortin at that time. And again, I'm telling this story for a reason. So the next year, Nelson and Small wasn't going to have Polaris, so they asked if we would run the Chaparral. So they gave me a 650 Chaparral, built especially for the drags. So we had a good season with it, but the last one was right here in Lancaster. You come down here, and you know, everything's all yellow down here. Well, the Timberland machine was right there. So, Fortin and I still hadn't spoken a word to each other. And again, we got lucky. I beat him in the 650, and I got him in the 800 with my 650. And now we're really pumped, you know. Carl and I, and Ray Hornsby, we're doing well. Yeah, take that, you know. Well, we're loading the machine again, and here he comes, walking across the airstrip up here. I said, uh-oh, it's going to be a tear down. He walked over and he shook my hand. He said, hey, I want to congratulate you on the day. There wasn't much red stuff here, and you know, hey, you beat us fair and square. And I said, well, thank you. And he says, the other guy from Ellsworth, from last March, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I am. And I still had that burr. Why are you turning me down? So he said, I got to talk to you. Which brings us into a light here. I said, what about? He said, well, we think we want you to ride with us next year. And I said, well, you know something? I don't know you very well. But we've been off on the wrong foot here a little bit. And I said, I'd rather ride something red or black or something like that and be able to beat you down in if I can. He said, oh, everybody's trying that. Anyway, we went to the race shop. He gave me a week. And I ended up being with Bob Fortin and Tim Lamachine and Bob Matten and Calvin, and we all run the same equipment. And the point, this is where I'm getting to the point. Bob Fortin had a hard job to do. He was a race director for Timberland. He raced against us. And he also was our boss, in fact, in regards to getting parts and all that stuff that you need if you're going to race. And Bob Fortin was one of the big reasons why I'm here, and Timberland Machine is why I'm here today, because I couldn't go do all that. I just couldn't afford it. I had 4 kids at home. If I didn't have the backing of what Timberland Machines gave me, and Bob Fortin being the boss of all of that, Jay, I told you probably wouldn't be receiving this today. So I just want you to know, and him and I became good friends too. We used to go down and visit in the summer once in a while, and whenever he was in Bangor at the other Timberland shows, he'd always stop at the house and talk, and we hit a beer or two or whatever. Yeah. Bob Fortin to me was the reason I'm here. Along with, I do have to add in, Alouette was very good. Did get a number 2 out of that, and Mercury was good. But it seems so every time I turned around, one was going bankrupt. They're going out of business, not building anymore. So Skidoo went out in '75 because of the gas guns. And I continued on with Alouette and Mercury through those years. But when Skidoo came back into it again, I got another call from Bob Fortin. So I had to speak highly of Bob Fortin because he called me back and to get back into racing again. And I didn't say no. We didn't have no talking over there in the race shack. I said, yes sir, I'll be right down.
He was one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet.
He was a good friend to me, and he was the job he had to do. I thought he was quite fair.
Yeah, no, he was a good friend of a lot of people here in town, and he used to hang out at Dick's, and Bob used to hang out at Dick's, and they all hung out, and I was surrounded by legends of the sport, and at that time didn't really know it. They were more like brothers to me than anything else. And I'll tell you one thing, all Bob could talk about was J.R. told you this and J.R. told you that. So he spoke highly of you too.
Yeah, but how good was it?
Pretty good.
After 72, I'll go along.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want everybody to know, never would have got to go to those World Series, never would have, you know, I just met a lot of great people, and a lot of them are sitting right here, and there's more of you out there that we talked a little earlier. You know, there's something to be said about the sport and what we get out of it. I was telling someone earlier today, we were probably having some of the best times in our lives, working our butt off, and never even realized how much fun we were having.
Oh, it was
sport
the
means
best
a lot
time of
to
your
me.
life.
It really means a lot to me. And I just, I want to thank all these sponsors that helped me out through, like the rest are doing. And this guy, don't get around the hotel. And Elwood, you ain't no different. Herb, he was always a pretty nice guy, but these two are gangsters. The shot, what do you call that, shot sheet? What's the name of the shot sheet? I jumped into bed one night, my knees coming up my chin. He tied sheets together somehow and shot them out. I just want to say, you know, I wouldn't have been to St. Paul and all these other places that we went if it hadn't been for the strong backbone of Timberland Machines and the people that stood behind the sport all up through the years. So.
It was a great company in Lancaster, Mrs. and Dearly.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mr. Herb Yancey. You know, every Hall of Fame has to have, you know, the rest of them, you know, they all deserve to be in the Hall of Fame big time. Everybody here deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but, you know, the Music Hall of Fame has Elvis Presley. The NASCAR Hall of Fame has Richard Petty. The Baseball Hall of Fame has Babe Ruth. Are you ready for this? Herb Yancey, inducted into the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame, 2019. Herb's racing career spans 30 years, from 1964 to 1994. He wore USSA Gold Bibs number 2, 3, 7, and 20. In 1970, Herb raced for Pennsylvania Arctic Cat distributor Penn Arctic. He then began racing for Team Abo, which soon became the most successful team in the history of Eastern Snowmobile racing in 1975. Became the only independent driver ever to win a snow pro race, beating the factory teams in the 650 class at the 1974 World Series at Eagle River, Wisconsin. He beat the snow pro guys. At Peterborough, Ontario in 1975, Herb won the 440 class in the professional driver's circuit both days. He also won a Kilkenny Cup in Mod 2 at the 1975 Lancaster Grand Prix. Counting a 74 win, Herb has won 6 World Series events. He won 3 first at the 1977 World Series in Weedsport, New York, and took 2 more at the 1978 World Series in West Yellowstone, Montana, winning in both the 440 Supermod and the 440X. For his effort, he was voted Star of the Series. Out of the 99 events Herb entered in 1977, he won 77 of them. Wow. Herb won the coveted Adirondack Cup in 1978 and became Driver of the Year for the 1978 season. In all, Herb Yancey garnered an amazing number of trophies, estimated to be between 1,200 and 1,500 during his racing career. His record as an independent, non-factory snowmobile racer is unmatched by anyone's standard and may never be surpassed. Ladies and gentlemen, please bow or curtsy.
Well, I want to start off with saying that it's snowmobile racing has always been a big part of my life. It was probably the #1 thing that I ever wanted to do from the time I was about 14 years old and rode on my first snowmobile. And it had a long and diverse road that I followed, and I don't know quite what to say other than I just appreciate all the support that I had over the years, and I can't begin to thank everybody, but I'm going to try. I was just a farm kid that didn't have much, but I knew that I wanted to go fast. I just love the speed that I could obtain on anything that I ever was aboard. And a local dealer, Arctic Cat dealer, Dick Rennie from Casterland, New York, knew that I liked snowmobiles and I was pretty good at it. So he offered me a ride the first year. And he didn't have anybody to ride the big sleds, and he knew I liked speed. So he put me on a 634 Puma right out of the gate, and I went to a race. I come over to Lee, Massachusetts, and we went to a race, and we did pretty good, but it wasn't on top of the field, because there's a lot of tough competition over here. And then I think the next weekend we went to the New York State Fairgrounds, and all the factories were there. And I found out at that point that I had some talent and I had some ability to compete with the big boys. I remember Yvonne Duhamel, I raced it. He was in the class with me in the 650 class. And make a long story short, I wound up placing third against the factories way back then on my first early beginning. But there's a long road after that. Once I got done with the dealer racing for Rennie Sales and Service, I moved to New Jersey, and I didn't know what I was going to do in New Jersey as far as snow sled racing, because there was no races there. So I got hooked up with a Pennsylvania distributor and Penn Arctic, and they didn't have any big sled drivers either, so they were glad to welcome me on board. So I raced all over Pennsylvania until 1974, and had quite a lot of good success, and run into a lot of tough drivers down in that neighborhood. Then I, as one of the people were mentioning, the sponsorships or the dealers or distributors were getting acquired by Nero Equipment. They acquired Rodco in New England here, and then they acquired, the following year, they acquired Penn Arctic. So at the end of the 74 year, I was done with my sponsorship again. So I went to Eagle River for the snowmobile race World Series that year, and I was going to run against the Snow Pro because I always lagged a few points from being in the top 10. So I missed my invitation in 74. And when I got out there, I said, well, I can run against the factories. So I signed up, and in the afternoon, early afternoon, we had the Snow Pro, they were the elite show. So I was signed up in that class, so I went out and practiced on the racetrack. Well, my sled broke down because it wasn't up to par. So the night before at the restaurant, Team Able, Bill Able, offered me one of their sleds. And I said, no, I'll ride mine. So I rode mine and it broke down. So then, after it broke down, I said, well, there's one chance I can still get in. So I run over to Team Able's bus and I said, is that sled available? And they said, sure, but we're busy with Ron Hall's sled because he's our main concern. And I said, well, I understand, so I will work at it and see if I can get it put together. They had it all pieced out, robbing parts for this and that. And they said, we brought it along. We weren't going to run it, but it's here. You can take it. So I got it all put together. And by the way, it was Chip Elwood's sled. It was freshly put together, because he didn't get it put together early in the season, so it was all fresh. And it was, I took it into the pit. In them days, they used to lock the pit gates. Once you went in, you couldn't go back out to get a part or a spark plug or anything. So you had to take everything you needed into the locked pits. And by then, Ronnie was done with his class, so all of Team Abel's mechanics jumped right on the sled, and we finished putting it together in the pits. And so the first time that I rode that sled was when I pulled on the line in the heat race with all the tractor drivers. And never sat on it before, but it was such a well-prepared sled that I went out there and I placed third. It was enough to turn over into the semi. And I said, if we can get this sled tuned up just a little bit more, I said, I think I can really place in this race. And it was so much better than my sled that I just was just like I was tuned for it. And I took it into the corners so hard that everyone thought I was going to crash every lap going in, and I would slide right up to the wall within a foot of the wall and then charge back down through. And I remember the race quite vividly. Charlie Lofton was ahead of me. I got out in the feature just about third, and then picked them off one by one. By about the sixth lap, I was ready to go into the lead. And I took the lead, and I said, well, Charlie Lofton was who I was dueling with. He pulled back by me. And then the next lap, I went by him again, and then I never seen him again. I said, I wonder what happened. Well, I don't know. I guess something give out on the sled. But then I was out front all by myself and won the race. So that was one of the highlights of my career, is beating the factories with the big machine against those seasoned drivers and all the budget they had. And that was just, I can't say how much that was a highlight. And so then the rest, I got invited to join Team Able for the coming seasons. And that's when my career really took off, and I had mechanics helping me. It wasn't a one-man show anymore, and we had good support. And so I owe so much to Team Able and the whole crew, Ronnie and Chip and the mechanics. That just made everything possible. It left me more time to concentrate on driving, and as some of you probably know, I was a pretty intense driver. I was all business, and when I went to the races, there was no monkey business. Everything was serious. So I just, I could go on and on about a lot of stories. If you want to talk to me one-on-one or anytime, I'm available to correspond with any or everyone, because the sport will give me so much in my life that I can never repay what I owe.
They don't call him the giant killer for nothing. Angie, come over here, please.
Is that just the family? I was at the base and I loved it. And I loved it.
Thank you very much.
Claude, you probably want to know what's going on. I don't know a thing about this, but she's doing this.
She blindsided you, buddy.
Yeah, I guess.
She made up every one of these for each one of the convicts. Really?
Did a wonderful job.
Take a look. Nice.
Memories to have of everyone. So this week is what
Nice.
Also have one for you.
Thank you very much.
So you can put it on your wall and see everybody's
Yep.
face.
I got a couple I won't go back at.
You know, it was a magazine. And they are quite amazing. Like, they're nice. Oh, that's nice, because they got to picture of everyone. You have the picture of everyone? That's what I did this week.
Hang over there, so when you get up in the morning, you salute that guy right down there.
Guy just above
All right, we're gonna pull the curtain on this thing. We had to cover up Kenny Young, who was inducted last year, because of how we got this set up. But Kenny Young is coming out with the new inductees again. And here, ladies and gentlemen, are your 2019 class inductees of the Eastern Snowmobile Racing Hall of Fame.
Ain't that nice?
Okay, now we need,
What's that?
need group pictures.
Talking about some vintage racing and what went on here today. It's kind of caught me off guard, but it was a Hall of Fame inductees today of 2019. Was very honored to and privileged to be able to accept the award today. Met a lot of guys here, done a lot of talking, reminiscing. So they all told a few lies. Had a great time. I've had people say to me, and since I've got down in 80, 81, you know, if you had to do all over again, would you do it? And I always answer with this, and I had be, but I don't want to be my age now, starting out. I want to be younger, back when I was young again. But met a lot of great people doing this 12, 13-year run I had. Still stay in touch with some, because some have passed. But the great camaraderie that we had amongst us all. Like on a Saturday night or Saturday afternoon, the racing's all over. We were in a motorhome or my old school bus or somebody's camper or whatever, and reminiscing the day or maybe the week before over maybe a beer or two, and go out to dinner. Yeah. Of course, every night we didn't get back to bed at 9 o'clock like we were supposed to either, too. But we gained a camaraderie that we all had the same thing in mind. You know, we're there to beat each other during Saturday. Saturday's race qualified for the Sundays, and again, Sunday we do it all over again for the features. But the Friday and the Saturday nights and the Sunday, we'll say when they're giving out the awards and stuff, it didn't make any difference what color jacket we had on. We all sat around a round table, 2 or 3 of them, and waited our turn if it was our turn on that given weekend. But it was a part of our life that, like I said today, we were having some of the best times in our life, and we didn't even know it at the time. So, I just had a lot of fun, met a lot of nice people. You know, we enjoyed the travel, meeting the people. There was places like Eagle River, Wisconsin, and St. Paul, Minnesota, and some of these other places that we went to World Series, and Weedsport, New York, and I probably never would have got to those places. It wasn't the winter time, but I wouldn't have got to those places if it hadn't been for the people that stood behind me, as I spoke about today. As you know, when you travel like that, you need help, unless you can back yourself. I had 4 kids, I couldn't. Sure. But I was very fortunate to have some people that really helped me out a lot, and I appreciate everything they had done for me. Wonderful. And just like Herbie Yancey said today, there's no way I could ever repay back the favors that have been given to me. I thought that was a good statement that he made.
Yeah, for sure. Good. Thank you so much.
My name is Ron Hall. I raced snowmobiles from 1970 to 76, 77. I never was one for speed. I didn't like fast cars or anything like that, but my next door neighbor, Jimmy Fonger, which was an excellent racer, I started hanging around with him and changing spark plugs at a race and stuff, got interested in it, and it kind of caught on. I never sat on a snowmobile till I was probably 27 years old, and I started out with skidoos for 1 year. Got offered a ride on a snow jet in 73, I guess it was, and did real good with that. And then Bill Abel from A&P Auto Parts called me up to run a 73 Rupp Magnum, and so I said okay, and it sounded like a good offer, and we raced that and did real well with it. We ended up winning Malone, the Northeastern Championships at Malone, a half-mile horse track, and we went on to Boonville, and it was a 440, and we entered it in the 650 class at Boonville. They had the famed Adirondack Cup there, and so I raced against all the 650s and ended up winning it. Later on and down the road, Herbie Yancey was my teammate on Team Able, and he got second in that race. And the next year, I ran the Adirondack Cup in '74, and they put it into the 440 class, but we had prepared a 650 to go back after it again, and I won the 650 class that year. I had a 650, I won it, but so that was 2 years in a row that I won the 650 class there. But they moved it into they were moving it into the class with the most sleds. So I didn't win the 440 that year. So the next year I had 3 supermods. I went back in '75 and won 3 supermod classes, winning the cup again. So I got 2 of the Adirondack Cups at home. And they're over 6 foot tall. They're a big trophy. Wow. And my prized possessions.
Yeah.
But that was one of the highlights of my career. I'd won World Series classes and stuff. But probably one of the biggest highlights was they had a regular snowmobile program at Weedsport, New York. They had the factories were there. They had a special class that you qualified during the year. You had to win a 440 Supermod class to qualify for this. It was a 50-lap class that they put up quite a bit of money into, and they left 10 positions open, and the factories and stuff could come out and qualify. They had the twin track Manas there, and they had the Arctic Cat factory was there, and we raced the whole program all day long. I raced the 250 class, I raced the 440 class, I raced the 440X, and normally, we had some lightened tracks and stuff trying to go fast, so with all that racing, and then plus the 50 laps, my son spent quite a few days building a heavy-duty track. It was nothing. There wasn't anything trick track or anything like that. It was heavy, and for a trail riding event, and that's what I raced all day long. And we ended up. They had 25 sleds. They were parked. It was a Le Mans start. They parked them on a 45-degree angle on the infield, and we back up against the grandstands. And the grandstands counted down, 9, 8, 7, 6. And some of the guys took off on 4. But anyways, I got over there, and you had to stick your tender switch on, and you could have a mechanic pull it for you. And my wife's uncle, he was, starting the sled for me, and we started off, and I think it was 20. They had a lap counter because it was a stock car track on, so you knew how many laps you completed. And I think by the 20th lap, I lapped all the factories by that time.
Wow.
But I went on to win it, and it was that was one of my highlights that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
That's amazing.
yeah. So that and just people. They don't realize how much fun we had back then. The amount of people that would come to those races. They didn't have the sports programs and stuff on television or the cables and all that kind of stuff. I mean, everybody, snowmobiling really hit with a crash. I mean, people. They had 2 snowmobiles. They might not have a car, but they had 2 snowmobiles.
They had their priorities right.
Whole families for the weekend. We would race, and at Boonville they'd have 900 entries. And when you come away from there with a win, you knew you were real lucky, and you knew you had real good equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to have both. And there was a ball racing against the same guys. We've got to be friends every week. That you were down to business and serious on the track, but then afterwards, you're the best of friends.
The real community.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, I really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank
you.
Claude Hebert. I started racing motorskis back in '64 when the '65 models came out. And little did we know at that time what we were really into. We didn't even know that this industry was going to be what it is today. I think none of us really realized the industry was going to grow the way it has. If we had, maybe we'd have done things a little bit differently. But in any case, it was exciting because we were young, we wanted to go fast. And when the motorski dealer in Colebrook offered me a ride, well, what the hell, it's his sled. I don't have to worry about beating mine up. And then I was pretty good on the sled, so then I got an offer from Rockwell Distributors out of Yarmouth, Maine. And so they hired me, and I went racing and sales, and raced every weekend, and then salesman during the week. Time went on. I worked for Rockwell for about 10 years. In the first 5 years, racing and sales, and then after that, after the accident in Lancaster, they told me that I was too valuable to be on the racetrack. They wanted me in the office tending to sales. So from '71 on, it was strictly New England sales manager. And we had guys that were going to just race and beat the sleds up on weekends. So that was my introduction to the racing and to the competition out in the field through motorski. And then, of course, Bombardier bought motorski, and things were changing rapidly at that point to where Rockwell was no longer going to be a distributor. So I moved on to another brand, and never raced the other brands, but was always involved with the other brands in one form or another of promoting, developing, testing, and things like that. So the snowmobile industry was very good to me for 18 years that I was in it. So today I kind of look back on that with fond memories, especially with what they have done here at Cranes, that they took the time and the initiative to bring back the memories of yesterday. I think great job.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I can't be thankful enough to this organization, Paul Crane and Midge and his other associates, which I don't personally know, but this is a great thing for snowmobiling and the vintage aspect of it. It's just phenomenal that I am a part of that. I feel honored to be inducted into this year's inductees. I have so many people to thank that it's hard to go through and mention them all.
Sure.
But snowmobiling is so much of my part of my life. Well, all these stories, like I mentioned in the presentation,
Sure.
I always loved running against the factory because they're the best. They got the best budget. If you could even stay with them, that's such an honor.
Sure.
And I loved it when they would when we'd pull in, especially with Team Able. I've heard this quote many times, and I've read it in print in Warriors of Winter, that there comes that Team Able and that damn Yancey. So that kind of tickles my fancy.
Nice.
And I just loved racing against them because they're the best of the best. And so where does that put me? I'm right there in the same category.
Nice.
And it's nice to have that feeling,
Yeah, for sure.
to know that you're that caliber.
Yeah, and that people are still thinking about it these many years later.
Yes, and I didn't realize it until just recent years, digging up all this old stuff, that I was just one driver that was, they loved to watch race because I was so animated and all over that sled. I did whatever I needed to. I could jump on printer any sled and bring it in, even if it didn't have a track record of being a winner. It was so great to get the most potential out of a unit when you're on it. And I ran various sleds for various people over the years, and some of them I said, I don't know how the driver could drive that sled, but I would still get it around.
Nice.
It's just such a honor to be recognized for what's going on now, the resurgence in this vintage program. So I just talked to Mark Bellinger, and he did Midge's sled, restored it with two other guys, his son and another guy, and they're getting involved in the vintage racing. So I'm sure we're going to have a good association because he does just a super job restoring them sleds and making them look great.
Oh, I got that bash, okay. Ready? Here's a bull. I'll strengthen a bull. And,
Oh, wow. Beautiful job, Mark.
Dude, you gotta be kidding.
Put it on Facebook, Mitch.
what did they do to it, man?
Yeah.
Here, get on it.
Wow,
Get on it.
that thing is so clean. Oh my God.
Put your feet on the running board.
So you're the first one to sit on it.
I remember you.
Look at me, dear.
Perfect. I got an empty trailer over there. You can put that in there. I had Conrad make the seat with 3 extra pleats in it. Get you up on the handlebars.
Oh, man, it's perfect. It's perfect. I'm not putting my feet on the running board, so.
Wow.
Isn't it beautiful? You can't believe it.
Dude.
Wow.
I can't believe you don't remember.
Hon, I need you back.
Sit.
Hang on. Fire out. Fire out. Fire it up. Hey, Vince, I think it's too big for you. I'm the second one to sit on the seat. Now, just so everybody knows, Midge wanted it to be quiet. I did not. So it's quiet. Wow, how you doing?
Beautiful job.
Hey, man, Eagle River Vintage next year, man? And you need that to get the hood off.
Oh, okay,
That's in
yeah.
the Hampshire quarter, number 25. Can I get you to help?
25. I just want to tell you the deal with this sled.
You got a bad back.
I
got a bad heart.
This was a 1977 TX 440. It was given to me by the Ford garage when I retired. I liked the sled a lot. I mean, I couldn't thank them guys enough.
You're thinking of
To give me that sled.
Carry, I'll be right back.
But I secretly always wanted a PDC where it's like they raced back in 1975. I always wanted the engine sticking out.
Just the 3 of us.
And I had a Bo James GMC pickup. I bought it brand new off of Mark's grandfather in 1975 down at Belanger's Olsenfield GMC. I had it my whole life. And Mark always wanted that truck. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. You get my truck if you can turn that sled into a PDC. There was just a handshake. There was no paperwork. He drove away with the truck. He came back that next winter and he picked up my sled. And there it is. It's a handshake deal, folks, and that's the way it ought to be.
Yes, sir. You did an awesome job, I'll tell you what. That's nice, Joe.
Did a beautiful job on this thing.
He's gonna race it.
It's the ultimate combination of simplicity and ingenuity. The newest way to load, unload, and transport your ATV or UTV. The Mad Ramp's Pivoting Ramp System. Made in the USA and engineered for strength and durability. Maneuver through tight places and over rugged terrain with plenty of ground clearance. No licensing, no ongoing maintenance costs, and no storage hassles like trailers. Won't slip or move like conventional ramps. Free up more cargo space in the bed of your truck. Securely connects to your truck's receiver hitch. Easily extends for safe loading and unloading. Seamlessly retracts for highway and off-road travel. DOT approved in all 50 states and Canada. Quickly disconnects in under a minute. A unique space-saving storage system. The Mad Ramps Pivoting Ramp System. Go farther. Go faster. Go safer.
When you order using the link in the description, I'll send you 3 free Vintage Snowmobile DVDs. When you order using the link in the description, I'll send you 3 free Vintage Snowmobile DVDs.